All right, strap in, everyone. Today, we are going deep into the world of writing.
Not just any writing.
Definitely not. We're talking writing faster.
Better.
Oh, yeah, and writing with way more passion, too. And lucky for us, our guide for this crazy adventure is Rachel Aaron.
Her book, 2000 to 10,000, How to Write Faster, Write Better, and Write More of What You Love.
Definitely required reading, so by the time we're done with this deep dive,
You'll be walking away with
a whole toolkit.
toolkit of strategies.
Strategies to supercharge your writing.
Any kind of writing, really.
Novels, blog posts, that email you've been putting off,
All of it.
we've got you covered.
It's really incredible.
What's incredible?
How much Rachel's approach just clicks with so many writers. Like, she gets it, you know?
Mm.
Time, self-doubt, those slumps, she's been there.
And instead of just throwing up her hands,
She finds solutions. Actual, real, actionable solutions that can change how you approach writing entirely.
seriously, she doesn't mess around. She gives you a framework,
Like a roadmap.
a writer's roadmap that anyone can follow. And we're not just talking about minor improvements here. Imagine going from 2,000 words a day to 10,000.
It's mind-blowing, almost like writing an entire book in a week.
Seriously, that's insane. But is it even possible without sacrificing quality?
That's the beauty of it. It's not about churning out words mindlessly. Rachel's system streamlines everything. It removes those roadblocks and helps your ideas just flow.
Okay, let's break this system down then. So Rachel calls this the writing triangle.
3 sides: knowledge, time, and enthusiasm.
Sounds simple enough.
But like anything worthwhile, the real magic is in the details.
So where do we even begin?
Well, knowledge is a great place to start. Rachel realized that one of her biggest hurdles was trying to figure out what to write while she was already writing.
It's like heading out on a road trip with no map, right? You just end up getting lost and wasting a ton of time.
Exactly. And that's where so much frustration and procrastination comes from for writers. You're just staring at that blank page.
Ugh. I know that feeling all too well. So how do we fix it?
This is where things get interesting. Rachel is a big advocate for what she calls pre-writing. You spend time brainstorming, outlining, basically figuring out the entire story before you actually sit down to write.
Just like having that roadmap. You know where you're going, you know what to expect, you can anticipate those detours.
Exactly. Now, you might be wondering, did this actually help her write faster?
I mean, it makes sense, but did it really make a difference?
The results were amazing. By just shifting to this pre-writing stage, Rachel more than doubled her daily output. She went from 2,000 to 5,000 words a day.
Whoa, that's huge. Why isn't everyone talking about this? It seems so important.
I know, right? It's such a simple but effective way to overcome writer's block and just write more consistently.
Okay, so pre-writing check. What's next on this writing triangle?
The next side is time. Rachel's big on understanding your own writing habits and then making your schedule work for you, not against you.
So it's not just about finding any spare minute to write. It's about being intentional with your time.
You got it. It's about figuring out when you're most productive and setting up an environment that helps you really focus. Rachel actually started meticulously tracking her writing habits.
Wow, that's dedication.
Mm.
What did she find out?
Well, it challenged the whole idea that you have to write in short bursts to be productive. For her, it was all about those longer, uninterrupted writing blocks. That's when she was the most efficient.
So instead of trying to squeeze in 15 minutes here and there, it's more about finding an hour or two where you can just completely immerse yourself in your writing.
Precisely. And think about where you write best. Is it a quiet library, a bustling coffee shop, or maybe curled up in your favorite chair at home? Everyone is different. The key is figuring out what works for you and creating that space that helps you get into the flow state.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like creating a sanctuary for your creativity, a place where you can shut out all the distractions and let the words flow. Okay, so we've got knowledge and time. What about this last side of the triangle, enthusiasm?
This one might seem obvious, but Rachel takes it a step further. She found a direct link between her writing speed and how excited she was about what she was working on.
So when she was super into a scene, the words just poured out.
Exactly. But if a scene felt boring or like a chore, the writing would drag and she'd get stuck.
Oh man, I feel that. It's like pulling teeth sometimes. You know you need to write the scene, but it just feels so uninspiring.
And that's often when those boring scenes are actually red flags. Maybe the plot's gone off track, a character feels off, or the scene just isn't serving the story.
So instead of blaming ourselves for not feeling inspired, we should be asking, is there something wrong with the story itself?
Exactly. And instead of forcing yourself to write those uninspired scenes, you can rework them, revise them, or even just cut them entirely. It's about taking control of your story and making sure you're truly passionate about what you're writing.
I love that. It's so empowering. But okay, we have this writing triangle sounds great, but how did Rachel actually use it? Did she like test it out?
Oh, she put it to the ultimate test. She challenged herself to write an entirely new novel as fast as she could, using everything she'd learned about knowledge, time, and enthusiasm.
Wait, so starting from scratch, no planning, no outline, that sounds insane.
It was a bold move, but the results speak for themselves.
She finished the first draft in just 12 days.
12 days. Seriously.
And to top it off, the book, Fortune's Pawn, was published under her pen name Rachel Bach, and even kicked off a whole sci-fi series.
That's incredible. It really shows that writing quickly doesn't have to mean sacrificing quality. In fact, it can lead to more books, more experimentation, and maybe even more success. So why aren't more writers doing this? What's holding everyone back? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Maybe it's the fear that writing faster will somehow make their work worse. Or maybe it's the idea that good writing has to be this agonizing, painful process.
It's like we've been conditioned to believe that writing has to be this big struggle. But Rachel's proving that wrong. It can be efficient and enjoyable.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where speed and creativity come together. And it all starts with shifting our mindset and embracing a more joyful and productive relationship with our writing.
Okay, so Rachel's system is all about writing faster and with more passion. But what about those times when it feels like pulling teeth? What about those days when procrastination wins and every word feels forced? How do you deal with those writing slumps that just seem inevitable?
She doesn't sugarcoat it, those slumps happen. But instead of just accepting them as part of the process, she digs deeper to find the root cause.
So it's not about being lazy or lacking motivation.
Often it's about a disconnect between the writer and the story itself.
So instead of beating ourselves up, we should be asking, is there something wrong with the story? Has the plot gone stale? Is a character falling flat?
Right. And once you identify the problem, you can actually fix it. Rework those scenes, revise them, or even cut them altogether. You have the power to shape your story into something you're truly passionate about.
I love how empowering that is. It's like taking back control of the narrative. Okay, we've talked a lot about inspiration and passion, but what about the actual process of writing? Is Rachel a plotter or a pantser? Does she plan everything out meticulously or just go with the flow?
Rachel is definitely a plotter. She carefully maps out her stories before diving into the actual writing.
So tell me more about this plotting process. What are the steps involved?
It starts with brainstorming, generating tons of ideas, exploring different possibilities. Then comes character development, outlining the plot, and creating a clear structure for the story.
It's pretty standard so far. Anything unique about her approach?
Here's a twist. She actually recommends figuring out the ending of your story before you write the beginning.
Whoa, really? That seems counterintuitive. Why would you do that?
She argues that knowing where you're going makes the writing process way more efficient.
Like you have that destination in mind, so you can plan your route, anticipate any obstacles, and make sure you're moving in the right direction.
Exactly. And here's another cool thing she does. She emphasizes visualizing the story, almost like watching a movie in your head.
I can see how that would be helpful. It's like you're spotting potential pacing issues, identifying plot holes, making sure the story flows smoothly from start to finish.
Now let's talk about characters. Instead of creating super detailed backstories and profiles before writing, Rachel takes a more organic approach.
Organic. Tell me more about that. Sounds intriguing.
She believes in letting characters evolve alongside the plot, allowing them to make choices that shape the narrative in unexpected ways. Instead of forcing them into predetermined roles, she asks questions like, what would this character do next, based on their motivations and the situation?
I love that. It's like the characters have a mind of their own.
Exactly. It leads to those surprising character arcs, those twists and turns that make the story so much more compelling for both the writer and the reader.
So, with all this plotting and planning, it sounds like Rachel has a very structured approach to writing. Is there any room for spontaneity or inspiration in her process?
Oh, absolutely. While Rachel is definitely a plotter, she recognizes the importance of intuition and inspiration.
So it's not about sticking to the outline rigidly.
It's more about using the outline as a framework, a foundation, and allowing for those moments of serendipity.
Okay, that makes sense. So you have this plan, but you're also open to letting the story take you in unexpected directions. But I'm curious about something. With all this focus on efficiency and productivity, does every single sentence have to serve a purpose? Does every scene have to be action-packed and full of twists and turns?
Well, Rachel has this great saying, the two-bird minimum. It means that every scene should accomplish multiple goals. It has to work hard and earn its place in the story.
Okay, so explain this two-bird minimum thing. What exactly does it mean?
Each scene should do at least three things. First, it should move the plot forward. Second, it should reveal new information, whether about the characters or the world. And third, it should pull the reader forward, making them eager to see what happens next.
I love that. It's like a checklist for making sure your scenes are doing their job. So it's not just about writing a bunch of words, it's about making those words count.
Exactly. It's about being intentional with your writing and making sure every element is contributing to the overall impact of your story.
This all sounds incredibly helpful. But now I'm thinking about the editing process. That can be such a daunting task for writers, especially those who aren't naturally drawn to it. How does Rachel approach editing? Is it a painful process for her?
She actually has a really interesting perspective on editing. She sees it not as a chore, but as an opportunity to perfect the reader's experience.
That's a great way to look at it.
Instead of just focusing on grammatical errors or typos, she starts by identifying the biggest problems, the structural issues that can really derail a story.
So it's like addressing those foundational problems first. Those plot holes, inconsistencies, pacing issues, all the things that can make the story feel weak or confusing.
And to help with this, she uses tools like those scene maps and timelines that we talked about earlier.
So those tools aren't just for plotting, they're useful for editing too.
Absolutely. They help you see the structure of your story at a glance so you can identify those weak spots and make sure the narrative is flowing smoothly.
Okay, so she finds those big problems first. Then what? Does she edit linearly from start to finish?
Actually, no. Her approach is pretty unconventional. She doesn't edit in a linear fashion. Instead, she tackles each problem individually, jumping between scenes and chapters to address each issue thoroughly.
So she's not just going from page one to the end.
Nope. For example, let's say there's an issue with a character's motivation. That problem might pop up in multiple scenes throughout the book.
So instead of constantly revisiting the same problem in different contexts, she just isolates it and fixes every instance systematically.
You got it. It's a much more efficient way to edit. And once those big problems are addressed, she does a final read-through, focusing on polishing the language, refining the transitions, and making sure the story flows smoothly from beginning to end.
I love that. It's like a two-pronged approach. You tackle those big structural problems first, and then you fine-tune the language to create the best possible reading experience. This all sounds incredibly helpful for, the actual writing process. But what about the bigger picture? The world of publishing. What advice does Rachel have for aspiring authors who are trying to navigate that often intimidating landscape?
She has one piece of advice that really resonated with me, and it's this. There are no writing police.
Okay, that's an interesting one. What does she mean by that?
She's basically saying don't let self-doubt or external opinions stifle your creativity. There are no hard and fast rules when it comes to writing. Write the story you want to tell, the way you want to tell it.
It's so liberating. It's like a permission slip to be yourself and let your creativity run wild.
Exactly. Find your unique voice, embrace your individual style, and tell those stories that are burning inside you, even if they break the mold. The most important thing is to create something you're truly proud of. Welcome back to our exploration of Rachel Aaron's awesome tips on becoming a more efficient writer.
We were just talking about finding the time to actually write. It can be tough,
It really can. Life just gets in the way sometimes.
especially when you're juggling work, family, and everything else. Finding that dedicated writing time feels impossible.
Right. But Rachel was super aware of that even when she was developing the system. She knew time was a huge obstacle.
She was a new mom at the time, wasn't she?
She was, so she totally understood the struggle. But her approach isn't about magically finding these huge blocks of uninterrupted time.
Because who actually has those?
Exactly. It's about looking at your day and finding those little pockets of time that you can actually use.
So like instead of waiting for a free 4 hours, we look for 15 minutes here or a half hour there.
You got it. And the real key is consistency.
Makes sense. It's
Yeah.
like building a habit.
Exactly. Even if it's just a little bit each day, that regular practice will help you build momentum and get into a routine.
And over time, those little bits add up.
They do. And here's another thing Rachel discovered. It might surprise you.
What's that?
She actually found that those longer, uninterrupted writing sessions were way more productive than the short bursts.
Oh, really? Why do you think that is?
It's about immersion. When you can really dive deep into that world you're creating, the ideas just flow more easily.
So it's not just about finding any time. It's about finding the right kind of time. Time when you can really focus and get lost in the writing.
Right. Now, let's talk about something else that can be a real pain point for writers.
Uh-oh, what's that?
Writer's block.
Ugh, the worst. It's like hitting a brick wall.
It really is. You just stare at that blank page and nothing comes out. It can
Yeah.
be super frustrating, even demoralizing.
Totally. So what did Rachel say about how to deal with it?
She had a few strategies. First, sometimes you just need to step away from the manuscript for a bit.
Oh, like take a break. Get your mind off of it.
Exactly. Engage in activities that actually spark your creativity and give your brain a chance to recharge.
Do anything but write.
Sometimes that's the best thing you can do, and sometimes a change of scenery can help too.
Oh, I like that. Like working from a coffee shop instead of your desk at home.
Right. Sometimes a new environment is all it takes to get those creative juices flowing again.
It's like giving your mind a fresh start.
And if you're really struggling to come up with ideas, try free writing.
What's free writing?
Just write whatever pops into your head. No censoring, no worrying about grammar or structure. Just let those thoughts flow onto the page.
Okay, so kind of like stream of consciousness writing.
Exactly. The point is to break through that mental block and just get those words out. And remember, even experienced writers get stuck sometimes.
So it's normal.
Totally normal. It's just a natural part of the creative process. Don't beat yourself up about it. Now, let's switch gears and talk about community.
Okay.
Rachel really emphasized the importance of finding your people.
Your writing tribe.
Exactly. Those other writers who understand what you're going through, who can support you and encourage you.
Because writing can be pretty lonely sometimes, right?
It can be, especially when you're struggling with self-doubt.
So having that support system is crucial.
It is. It could be a writing group, an online forum, even just one friend who loves to write.
It's all about having that space to share your work, get feedback, and celebrate those wins.
And to help each other through those rough patches. Because let's face it, the writing journey is rarely a smooth ride.
Definitely lots of ups and downs. Okay, so we've got time management, writer's block, and community. But what about navigating the publishing world? It can be so intimidating, especially for new writers.
It can be. It's constantly changing, too.
What did Rachel say about all that?
She encourages writers to stay informed, to keep up with the latest trends.
So do your research.
Yes. But she also says to trust your gut and write the stories that you're most passionate about.
So it's about finding that balance between knowing what's going on in the industry and staying true to yourself.
Exactly. And remember, there are so many options now for getting your work out there. Traditional publishing is still an option, but self-publishing has become huge.
It's amazing how technology is changing everything.
Mm.
Okay, let's talk about editing. A lot of writers dread this part of the process.
It can be tough, but Rachel has this awesome perspective shift that can really help. She encourages writers to view editing not as punishment, but as a way to make the story the best it can be.
It's about creating the best possible reading experience for your audience.
Right. So instead of just hunting for grammar mistakes, she starts by looking at the bigger picture.
Okay, so like those structural problems that we talked about.
Exactly. She uses those scene maps and timelines to really see the whole structure of the story and find those areas that need the most attention.
So those tools come in handy for more than just plotting.
They're super versatile. And once those big structural issues are sorted out, she focuses on refining the language, making those transitions seamless, and making sure every sentence is doing its job.
So it's all about clarity and precision.
Exactly. And to achieve that, she even applies her two-bird minimum rule to the editing process.
Oh, I remember that. But that was for writing scenes. How does it apply to editing?
It's the same idea. It's about making sure that every sentence, every paragraph is serving multiple purposes. No wasted words.
So editing becomes less about finding mistakes and more about making sure that the writing is as effective as possible.
Right. And you know what else she does? For that final read-through,
What's that?
she reads the whole manuscript on her Kindle.
Her Kindle.
It's a device she associates with reading for pleasure. Oh, I see. So it's like she's tricking her brain into seeing the story with fresh eyes. Like he's a reader, not the writer.
It helps her catch those little issues that might have slipped through before. It's all about objectivity. Okay, so we've talked about time management, writer's block, community, publishing, and even editing.
Yep.
But writing can be emotionally challenging too.
Definitely. There's a lot of self-doubt and pressure. How did Rachel address that?
She's a big advocate for self-care.
So important.
It's not just about taking care of the practical aspects of writing. It's about taking care of yourself, your mental and emotional well-being.
It's like nurturing your inner creative spirit.
Right. It's about doing things that bring you joy, that recharge your batteries,
Mhm.
spending time in nature, listening to music, whatever works for you.
It's so easy to burn out when you're pouring your heart into your writing.
It really is. And it's important to remember that writing is a marathon, not a sprint.
You have to pace yourself.
Yes. Celebrate those little wins along the way and don't get too discouraged by the setbacks. Be kind to yourself. Okay, so self-care is key. But what about finding your audience? How do you connect with the readers who will actually appreciate your work?
Rachel emphasizes the importance of building a platform.
So creating a space where you can connect with readers and share your writing.
Exactly, both online and offline. And remember, it takes time and effort.
It's not going to happen overnight.
Nope. It's about consistency, sharing your work, engaging with your audience, and building relationships with other writers and readers.
It's about cultivating that community of people who love your work.
And don't be afraid to experiment along the way. Try different things and see what works best for you and your audience.
So be adaptable and open to new ideas.
Exactly. Now, with all this talk about platforms and marketing, it's easy to lose sight of why we write in the first place.
It's all about the love of storytelling, right?
Yes, it's about sharing those stories that are burning inside you, the ideas and emotions that you want to express.
It's about connecting with others through the power of words.
And Rachel reminds us that the most important ingredient in any story is heart. That genuine passion will shine through.
So it's not just about writing a perfect manuscript, it's about pouring your soul into it.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about technology. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
It is. It gives us amazing tools for writing and publishing, but it can also be a huge distraction.
Rachel gets it. She encourages writers to be mindful of their technology use, create boundaries.
So it's like set aside specific times for writing when you completely disconnect from all the distraction.
Exactly. You need to find that balance. Use technology to your advantage, but don't let it control you.
Speaking of challenges, what about rejection?
Ah, yes. The dreaded R word. Every writer faces it, and it can be tough.
It can feel so personal.
I know. But Rachel reminds us that rejection is not a reflection of our worth as writers.
It's just part of the process.
It is. Sometimes it's just a matter of taste or timing or finding the right fit with an agent or editor.
So it's not about taking it personally, it's about learning from it and moving forward.
Exactly. Develop a thick skin, revise your work, and keep submitting.
Perseverance is key. Now let's talk about finding your niche.
Ah, yes. That sweet spot where your passion and your audience's interests align.
How do you figure that out?
Rachel encourages writers to experiment, try different genres, different styles, and see what feels most natural to you.
So don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone and try something new.
Exactly. You never know what you might discover about yourself and your writing, and as you experiment, pay attention to what brings you joy.
That's what it's all about, right? The joy of writing. But amidst all this talk about genres and niches, it's easy to forget the heart of it all.
Storytelling.
Yes.
Yeah.
What did Rachel have to say about that?
She reminded us that writing is about connecting with readers on an emotional level. It's about transporting them to different worlds, introducing them to characters they'll care about, and sharing those universal human experiences that resonate with everyone.
So it's not just about writing a technically perfect story, it's about writing a story that moves people.
Exactly. And she said that the most important ingredient in any story is heart. That genuine passion that makes the story come alive.
So pour your heart into it.
Yes. And as you embark on this journey of writing, remember to celebrate those small victories along the way.
Because it's not always easy.
It's not, but those little moments of breakthrough, those times when the words flow effortlessly, those are the things that keep us going.
They remind us why we love to write.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up this section, I want to come back to something that Rachel emphasized throughout her book,
What's that?
the power of enthusiasm. It's not about picking a genre because it's popular or trying to please everyone. It's about finding that story that truly sets your soul on fire.
That makes you excited to write.
Exactly. And that passion will come through in your writing. When you love what you're writing, it shows. And your readers will feel it.
I can see that. It's like that energy is contagious.
And that's why Rachel is so adamant about cutting those boring scenes, the parts of the story that feel forced or uninspired. It's about making sure that every scene is serving a purpose, that every word is there for a reason.
It's like making every word count.
Right. And sometimes the hardest part is being honest with yourself.
You mean about whether a scene is working or not?
Exactly. If a scene feels flat, if the dialogue is dragging, if you're not excited about it, chances are your readers won't be either.
So trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is.
And it's okay to let go of those scenes even if you've spent hours on them. Sometimes you have to kill your darlings, as they say.
So how do you find those stories that really light you up? The ones that make you want to write, even when it's hard?
It starts with choosing stories that genuinely excite you. Stories that tap into your passions, your interests, your obsessions.
The things that keep you up at night.
Exactly. And remember, becoming a writer is a journey. There will be challenges, setbacks, moments of doubt.
It's not always going to be easy.
But if you hold on to that passion, that love for your craft, you'll not only write better, you'll enjoy the process so much more.
And that's what I love about Rachel's approach. It's not about making writing this painful, grueling process. It's about finding joy in it.
And remember, there are no writing police.
Right. No one is going to tell you what you can and can't write.
Write the story you want to tell the way you want to tell it. And be proud of what you create.
I love that. So inspiring. Okay, ready to move on to our final segment.
I am. Let's wrap things up by revisiting those key takeaways from Rachel's book.
Perfect. We've distilled all her wisdom into a 10-point guide that our listeners can use to supercharge their own writing.
Think of it as your writing cheat sheet,
Okay, so we've really dug deep into Rachel Aaron's approach to writing.
uncovering all her secrets to writing faster, better, with way more passion.
And now for the grand finale, we've got that 10-point summary for you.
Your cheat sheet for supercharging your writing process.
Consider this your toolkit for becoming a writing ninja.
All right, let's jump right in. Number 1, pre-writing is key.
Don't skip it. Spend time brainstorming, outlining, really figuring out that story before you even start writing.
It's like creating a blueprint for a house. You wouldn't start building without one, would you?
Definitely not. Number 2, know thyself.
Or at least know your prime writing time.
Experiment with different times of day. See when your brain is firing on all cylinders.
And don't forget to create that perfect writing environment.
That quiet space where the words just flow. Number 3, write what you love.
Seriously, let that passion shine through. Choose stories that excite you, that you can't wait to tell.
And don't be afraid to get those boring scenes. Trust me, your readers will thank you.
Number 4, plot with a purpose. Think about the ending of your story before you write the beginning.
It might sound weird, but it really helps to know where you're going.
Number 5, let those characters run wild.
Give them agency, let them make choices, and watch as they shape your story in unexpected ways.
You might be surprised at where they take you. Number 6, editing doesn't have to be torture.
Think of it as a way to polish your story, to make it shine.
Focus on those big structural problems first before getting lost in the little details.
Number 7, it's all about efficiency. Remember the two-bird minimum.
Make sure every scene is working hard, pulling its weight. It should move the plot forward, reveal information, and keep those pages turning.
Number 8, don't be afraid to break the rules.
Experiment with different styles, find your unique voice, and tell the story that only you can tell.
There's no right or wrong way to write.
Number 9, find your people. Connect with other writers, build your community.
It's all about supporting each other and sharing the love of writing.
And lastly, number 10, take care of yourself. Writing can be tough.
It can be emotionally draining. So prioritize self-care. Take breaks, recharge, and don't forget to celebrate those wins along the way.
There you have it, your 10 commandments for writing success. Or at least 10 really good tips.
We hope you found this deep dive into Rachel Aaron's writing system insightful.
And maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Remember, the most important thing is to find what works for you.
Experiment, have fun, and write those stories that are burning inside you.
That's all for today's deep dive.
Until next time, keep writing, keep learning, and keep those words flowing.